Hi, I'm Alex Mitchell and I'm the creator of Cancer Stories. Cancer Stories is a video diary program which is designed to help people like yourself manage their cancer. And the key aim is to record previous patients' experiences, really a wide variety of cancers. And these are patients who are genuine, real patients from Leicestershire who've given their consent to allow us to record their story onto DVD or the internet. What we ask those patients is really to give a brief account over 30 or 60 minutes. How did they manage with their diagnosis? And hopefully by watching their account you'll be able to pick out some common themes from one or more of those videos. And those common themes might be things like what resources are available locally or nationally, or how do families cope, or how do people themselves manage with those awkward stages, either the initial diagnosis or the complications of treatment, or perhaps psychological and emotional complications which are sometimes overlooked. So overall, we hope that by watching the video diary program you'll be able to take some positives from other people's accounts, and hopefully that will help you better cope with your situation, whatever that is at the current time. Thanks for watching.
My name is Hugh Gunn. I've been born and bred in Leicester. I have two daughters and I've been married for 45 years this year. I've led a very active and happy life with a very close family, which is something that has stood me in very good stead. For 40 years I was a self-employed greengrocer. It was a hard life. I used to my working day started at 2:30 in the morning and finished when it finished at night. But it kept me fit, which was a good thing. I had a hobby which I did on Sundays, which was dinghy sailing. And that kept me sane. You need to do something that's totally divorced from your job to keep you going, and that was super. It really was. Loved it. I have 3 grandchildren, 2 boys and a girl, which I have to say are the absolute highlight of my life. They're wonderful. All this was super until Christmas Eve 2005. And then I was hit with the bombshell that I'd got metastatic prostate cancer. And I thought it was the end of the world. My PSA was 760 and it had spread to most of my skeleton. And I was actually given between 18 months and 30 months to live. And the oncologist at the time just kept on saying, oh, get all your holidays in at the same time, which I found extremely depressing and wrong. To prove him wrong, I'd never run before, but I signed up and ran the Nottingham Half Marathon in 2006. It nearly killed me, and it took 2 hours 49 minutes. I can still feel every step, but I did it, and that was really important because there was a lot of training involved. And I met a lot of people because of it. which stood me in good stead, and it helped to get me over quite a difficult time psychologically. Through that, I became involved with our local support group in Leicester, Prostate, because I ran it for them. And through Prostate, I have met many good friends and have many good friends. Some are in the same position as me, but I think I'm the only one that's so far down the line as me. But I'm still here, and I'm very grateful for the fact.
Hugh is here today. You've kindly come in to tell us about your diagnosis, and I've heard your biography, which tells us that you had a prostate cancer. Although we haven't met before, I know from speaking to you just prior to this, there's a lot of valuable information that I hope you're willing to share with the viewers here. And I'd like to start by asking you about how your diagnosis came about. I heard you say about you working those long hours. Did that mean that the symptoms were masked by your work patterns?
Yes, they were. I got up at 2:30 in the morning, and when you get up you go to the toilet, and that really is the middle of the night. And because I was a greengrocer, I was lifting heavy bags of potatoes all day, and backache, which was another symptom, went with the job.
Yeah.
So that really did mask the symptoms.
So for you, what were the key symptoms? Maybe symptoms that other people should watch out for? Because I know there's campaigns about looking out for cancer in the media, but prostate cancer you don't hear so much about.
No. My symptoms, what drove me to the doctor, apparently was very unusual. I got an awful skin complaint. It was just like I'd been scalded. Mm-hmm. And I went to see my GP, who was fortunately a skin specialist and very much on the ball. And she recognised it as a condition called dermatomyositis. Derma being skin and myo being muscle. And because she recognised it so quickly, I got treatment for it before it could do any real damage. But that was a symptom of a malignant growth, and from that they found prostate cancer.
So that was a symptom of the prostate cancer,
Yes.
Was it, in effect?
Yes.
Okay. I know you know a lot about this area of symptoms and signs, but in general terms, what should people watch out for? What should men watch out for who are worried about prostate cancer?
Going to the toilet at night, difficulty starting, difficulty finishing, interrupted flow, backache, generally feeling exhausted, all of those things. If you go to the doctor with urinary symptoms, there's only a 30% chance that it's going to be prostate cancer. But if it is prostate cancer, the chances are it's already spread to somewhere else. There are no real symptoms of early stage prostate cancer, and that's a real problem because there's no screening for it either.
What do you think of the merits of the PSA test?
I think it's really important that people who are 50 and over have a PSA test, and it's their legal right to. The arguments against, I know all of the arguments against the PSA test. Overdiagnosis, stress. Well, what's the stress when you tell somebody that they've got advanced prostate cancer? You know, I mean, that's pales to insignificance.
Do you think it's a test that should be widely offered as a national screening program?
Yes, I do. very much so. There are major issues about not being able to tell a pussycat from a tiger, but there are also ways of dealing with that. If your urologist is someone that knows what he's doing, if he's a good one. If you have a Gleason of 6 or below, then...
Just to explain to the viewers, Gleason is a staging assessment which ranks the severity of the cancer.
Yes. With prostate cancer, you have when they take a biopsy, you have a Gleason score, and it ranges from 1 to 10. And on that scale is how aggressive the prostate cancer is thought to be. If it's 6 or below, it's not really an aggressive cancer. In fact, recent thinking is that it shouldn't be called cancer at all. If it's 8 or above, then it's aggressive prostate cancer, and it definitely needs treating. The real grey area is 7, because that's in the middle, and you don't know whether to do something about it or not. And that is something that your urologist really should know about and talk to you about.
Because I know there's a scientific approach which will surprise some people listening, which is watchful waiting, which is a monitoring strategy where active treatment's not given now, but they keep an eye on things with some intensity. And that's a little bit controversial, because if you're the patient with an overt cancer diagnosis, a lot of people would feel uncomfortable with just a monitoring strategy.
Well, if you've got a Gleason 6, you should opt for its active surveillance.
That's the one.
Yeah. That's rather more intense than watchful waiting. Because all of the treatments for prostate cancer have quite unpleasant side effects. And unless they're really necessary, you don't want to put yourself through that. So active surveillance, if that is an option, and your urologist will tell you whether it's a good option or a bad option, or they should do, then that's a good option to go for.
Let's return to your situation and your diagnosis. So you told us earlier about the circumstances relating to how the cancer was found, but how was it dealt with once it was found? How was the information given to you, and what followed that?
The way it was given to me was not very well, actually. I think things have improved. I got 5 minutes in what I can only describe as a broom cupboard with a Macmillan nurse, and came out with a leaflet with the number of cancer backup on, and I went straight on to hormone treatment, because with advanced cancer that's the only treatment option available. It's only when you start walking across the car park that you suddenly realise what they've said, and you're numb. You feel as though you've been hit by a hammer. And over the coming days, the questions build up, and at that time there was really nobody to ask the questions to. I think that's altered now, but it's really important that patients get involved with their local support groups, because there they will meet people who have been through it, know what it's like, and it's very helpful to talk to other patients.
It sounds like you've got a few ideas how services could perhaps be reorganised. Bearing in mind the pressures on health services these days, what do you think would be some improvements that could be made in relation to how cancer was handled in those early stages?
I think it already has been improved to a large extent. I know that Prostate, which is the local group that we belong to, actually fund a prostate cancer nurse specialist, which has improved the situation enormously. And that is something that we're really proud of, the fact that we're doing this. And she's a very conscientious person and does the job really well. So as far as that goes, that's an improvement. I think it would be helpful if the hospital could put them in touch with a support group, because support groups are really important. And there's a limit to what the actual hospital can do. At some point, you've got to grab the bull by the horns and do it yourself. Find out who the support group is, how they can help you, and what the best treatment options are.
What are the benefits of support groups, in your opinion, in cancer in general and in prostate cancer in particular, from your personal experience?
Moral support, huge. It can't be underestimated. You meet people who have got similar problems to yourself, because when you're diagnosed with cancer, you think that you're the only person in the world with it, but you're not. There are thousands, and you get to know them and you become friends, and it's really helpful. You also get to know what active treatments are available and whether there are any trials that you can go on. And if with advanced prostate cancer, it's important to go down the trial route, because that gives you access to drugs that you couldn't normally have on the NHS.
We'll come back to the trials in 1 second, but just carrying on the support group line, one thing that we're trying to do here is put patients in contact with each other through the hospital system, either one-to-one, like a buddying system, or in support groups, or in group therapy, or in using modern technology if those live options are not available, online. You mentioned about various positives, but some people I find are reluctant to engage in support groups, maybe because they're nervous about seeing people with a different stage or different type of condition. Is there any way around that, in your opinion?
I don't know. That's a very personal thing. All I can say is that you've got to swallow your inhibitions and do it, because you really will get a lot out of it, and it will improve your frame of mind massively. And if your frame of mind is in a positive frame of mind, I'm quite sure that it has a beneficial effect on your cancer.
Definitely. Whilst you were in the hospital, did you come across patients who you formed a bond with and were able to act as a form of support even before you entered into the formal support group arena?
No, not at all. I didn't meet anybody. We felt, as a family, totally isolated. There was nobody we could turn to. We weren't put in touch with anybody, and it was a very difficult period.
So what you're saying really is, as services are organised, often there isn't a mechanism to fill in for meeting other patients and putting other, people in contact where they would benefit from that. It's somewhat left to chance. Is that right?
I think it is. It shouldn't be. So some hospitals around the country are very proactive in helping patients get into support groups. Some aren't. And the nature of support groups is important as well. If you're just going to sit round a table and discuss your latest PSA result and be miserable, then that's not helpful. You've got to have a positive attitude and do things, go out together, organise days out, enjoy life, because one thing cancer does, it makes you appreciate the value of your life, and you have to enjoy every day.
During the times when you actually meet up with other patients and you're sitting around, what kind of tone or material do you think is most beneficial?
Well, with Prostate, it's more than a support group. We actively go out and raise funds. And the actual process of raising funds becomes important. And you can become a bit of an adrenaline junkie on it. We've done dragon boat racing. All sorts of things, awareness events, and it's not just a question of sitting down discussing your illness. In fact, we don't do that at all. We just discuss how we're raising money, what's happening to the money, what's happening at awareness events. We are not negative, we're all very positive, and that's how it should be.
It sounds like what you end up doing is creating an important role for yourselves.
Yes.
That you're able to discuss the role rather than just your illness.
Yes. It's important to feel that you're useful.
After you were diagnosed, it sounds like there was a difficult period. You know, often people go through some difficult times as well as some positives. What were the negatives? What were the bits you were struggling with initially?
Loneliness. That's really important. A feeling of abandonment, fear, because in my case, my prognosis wasn't good. And just total despair, which is really difficult to overcome.
Do you feel that the hospital were able to give you some hope, some positives, or do you feel that was left to you to find?
When I was diagnosed in Christmas 2005, I was totally on my own. Nobody gave me any advice. Nothing. I think that's improved now.
Now, if you imagine yourself giving advice to a newly diagnosed patient now, but they were in the position you were in, where they'd had the bad news, but not many positives seem to come next, what would you say to them in terms of where to point them, what to do, how to manage? So I know that's a difficult question, but it's a key one for people who might be newly diagnosed.
Find out where their local support group is and go to it. That's really important. Also, find out, if I was talking to somebody, I would ask them, at what stage their disease is, because advanced disease is not really the same disease as a curable one. If it's a curable one, you need to look at various treatment options.
I know you've looked into these a lot yourself. This would be a good time perhaps to talk about those medical options that are potentially available. I know there's a whole spectrum of options. There's hormonal treatment, there's also the chemotherapy in some cases. Talk us through what your experience of these therapeutic options has been.
Okay. With advanced prostate cancer, there's only one treatment that you can have, which is hormone treatment, which is just an implant injection every 3 months. That lasts, well, for me, that lasted for 5 years. And then it failed and my PSA started to go up quite rapidly. At which point I went on to a drugs trial. It was the Trapeze trial, which gave me access to Docetaxel, which is chemotherapy, and zoledronic acid, which is a bisphosphonate, which keeps your bones strong. And with hormone therapy, that is particularly important because hormone treatment gives you osteoporosis. And if you don't have something for your bones, then you'll have breakages, which is medieval. It's awful. That should be available on the NHS, but it isn't.
That's an issue right there, isn't it, about availability of drugs?
Yeah.
People can be often feeling stuck because they can't get access to a particular treatment. It may be the latest thing in the news that hasn't come along locally, or it may be theoretically available, but it's not recommended in the, for example, NICE, which is National Institute of Clinical Excellence guidelines. Is there any way to access these initially difficult to find medications?
Yes. Look on the internet and find a drugs trial that will be going off, and there are lots and lots and lots of them, and they're all desperate to find people to take part in them, and that will give you access to drugs that aren't available on the NHS, and that's important. Not all of them have placebos. Avoid ones that give you a placebo. The trial I'm on is the Trapeze trial, and that has various arms, but they're all arms that work. None of them are just sugar pills.
Can I just explain that to the viewers, that in a randomized controlled trial, usually there's 2 arms or 2 groups, and people are stratified or separated into a group who has the latest trial drug and a group who has a comparison. In some trials, the comparison can be effectively an inert tablet or placebo, but in other trials, the comparison is the current standard, the current active drug. So you'd have a comparison of the newer drug against the current drug, and that's what you're talking about non-placebo trials. And there is a danger, if people want to think about it like this, that in the placebo randomized control trial, it is possible to be allocated to an inert drug but not know it, because it's a blind allocation.
That's right.
Meaning you're not told. That's the whole purpose of the randomization.
Yeah.
So that's why trials, although they can be attractive and an important source of certain new drugs, they can be, they have to be taken on, the information has to be taken on board carefully.
Yeah.
It's a difficult decision, actually.
You need to choose which trials are good for you. There are 2 very good ones and very big ones. One is the Stampede trial and one is the Trapeze trial. And all of those, you do get active treatment with different arms. Some use just chemotherapy. Some use chemotherapy and zoledronic acid. Some use strontium 89, which is another arm of it, and another arm of it uses all three, but they're all active drugs and you will get active treatment, which is important.
What's your view about coping with the side effects of these prostate drugs? For example, the hormonal treatment or chemotherapy, for example, Docetaxel, or some of the other add-on treatments?
Well, with hormone treatment, the big thing that everybody fears is loss of libido and erectile dysfunction. But in fact, that's the one that is the least problem. When the chips are down, the important thing is you want to live. So you get on with that. Hot flushes can be quite unpleasant, but you do learn to live with them. Other than that, you just get on with your life as you would normally. When it comes to chemotherapy, that's a bit more drastic. I had 6 months of chemotherapy, and there's nothing that you can't cope with, but you do feel quite worn out. When I started, there was a magazine came out called Build the Endeavour, which was a part work magazine, and it was building the Endeavour, which was the ship that discovered Australia. And I started to do it, and it took me 2.5 years to do, and I've just finished it. It's fantastic. Really intricate model with I spent hours at it, and it really took my mind off it. It was fantastic. Get a project that you can do and keep going at.
That's good advice. In fact, let's come on to your advice about coping styles, how to maintain a positive outlook, whether that's important. So what would you say regarding how to manage psychologically and emotionally?
Keep busy. Make yourself useful. Get involved with your support group. And through Prostate, I got involved with the Prostate Cancer Support Federation, which is a national charity, which is quite a small national charity, but that sort of helps support groups. It's an umbrella organisation. And through that, I've met people all over the country that I wouldn't have met before and become friends with them, which is incredible. That never would have happened had I not have had prostate cancer. I've done things I never thought I would do. I really have, which is a huge bonus.
Just on the emotional side though, I heard you say about maintaining a positive outlook. Do you think that's important?
Yeah, definitely. Very much so. If you're going to think to yourself, oh, I've had it, I'm going to die, you probably will. If you think yourself, it's not going to get me, I'm going to fight it, then you'll fight it. And I'm sure that your emotional and psychological attitude has a bearing on the cancer. I was given 18 to 30 months to live 7 years ago, and I'm still here. And I think a lot of that is due to a positive attitude and a lot of medical help. Yeah.
Do you think the positive attitude is something that just is innate, it comes naturally to some people? Or do you think it's one that you can influence?
You have to work at it. You really do. Especially when the chips are down, and you've been given the diagnosis, and everything's black, and you've really got to work at it and develop it, and find something that you're going to do that's going to make your life interesting.
What's the role of family and friends in helping people cope?
Massive. I've had fantastic support from my family and my friends. They've been wonderful. I can't say in how many ways, because there are so many ways, that they've all been wonderful, and that has buoyed me up. My wife has been terrific. She's never wallowed in self-pity. She's always been bright and cheerful, and when I haven't been, she's been there to give me a kick up the bum. And yeah, she's been great.
Do you think there are sufficient resources for families and spouses who are managing, with a cancer diagnosis in their nearest and dearest?
Well, Kate got involved with the support group, so she is just as involved as I am, and as interested as I am, and that gives us a common interest, which is really useful.
Yep. Does she have her own source of support outside of that?
Just recently, we have both been going to Loros, which is a local hospice, and we've been having complementary therapy, which is aromatherapy, and that's been really helpful. It's been incredible.
Would you advise other people to access complementary treatments if they can find them?
Definitely.
Often they have to be sought out, and they're often just they're private, aren't they? You usually have to pay.
Yes.
But sometimes they might be available.
Well, this you don't have to pay for, but when it's finished, we will give a sizable donation, because it's been worth every penny.
That's great.
But if you've got to pay for it, then you've got to pay for it, but it is well worth it. I shall find, you have 6 sessions with this, and when my sessions are over, I shall find somebody that does it and continue it, because I've found it incredibly helpful.
What do you think are the next steps for you, and what do you see in the future?
I'm very well down the treatment journey. I'm on a drug that hasn't got a license yet. When that fails, ideally there'll be another drug trial that I can go on, which will help extend my life. I certainly don't intend to curl my toes up, that's for sure. I've got too much living to do.
I heard you mention earlier about your objectives now, and one thing that's come up quite a lot recently is this idea of a list of things that you want to achieve.
Yep.
How far have you got in that line?
Oh, we're working down it. I did my half marathon. I've done a parachute jump. I did dragon boat racing. I've learnt to water ski. I did boogie boarding in France. That's where you go down a rapids, but instead of being in a dinghy, you're on a float, and that was terrific. What would I like to do next? I don't know. I can't do another half marathon, that's for sure.
Yes, that's tiring for anyone. Most people can not achieve that. Even if,
yeah, well, I'm 67 now,
yeah.
So but I shall find something. Wing walking is in the back of my mind.
Some people say that when they've had a very serious illness, life's changed for the bad and then for the good, i.e. something good can come out of it. Do you agree with that?
Yes, very much so. Yeah. My illness made me retire, and I instantly had a social life because of my business and my previous working hours. We never had a social life. That was out, and suddenly we were going to the theatre, meeting friends, going out for meals, doing things we wanted to do, and getting involved with the support organisations. I've developed friends literally all over the country, and that is so beneficial. In many ways, it's enhanced my life.
Yeah. Is there anything finally you want to say to new patients watching this who are hearing your story and they're getting some inspiration from it, definitely, but they're still at an early stage themselves and they're feeling a little bit stuck?
Look to the future, be positive. You're not going to die tomorrow. You've got a lot of living to do, and enjoy it.
That's great. Thank you for giving your account, and I know people will take a lot from it. You've got a lot of personal experience about the medical treatment and also the emotional side and the issue with families as well. So I think you described the whole spectrum of coping with a prostate diagnosis very well, and thanks for coming in. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Take care.